Hi, Rajni.
Hi, Carla. How are you?
I'm fine. Good evening to you and good morning from me. Glad to see you again. And I want to welcome back all of our audience, especially the people who have been involved in the first two sessions of our talks on our cognitive talk, specifically because you and I are dedicated to helping the world understand the real traits and features of cognition and how they are relative to every part of life, and particularly with your expertise in pedagogy and mine in early cognitive development. We want to change the whole face of the world relative to cognition. And we've had a lot of great feedback from our first two sessions from all of the STEAM experts, the parents, the teachers, the principals. And we're glad to have this feedback because we get a lot of good questions and very competent queries about how other people want to move forward with this whole development of cognition and how it's relative to students' real brain development, their educational quality, and especially today, our particular topic and how technology is involved in our lives and especially in the lives of children. And so we really appreciate all of everybody's participation and viewing of our sessions, and especially the stakeholders in education and those who are involved in technology for better education and how it's integrated into children's development today. So with that having been said, I'm going to pass the mic over to you in the
Thank you so
proverbial
much, Carla, and good evening to you and everyone. Of course, good morning to America. That's your highest time zone, actually. And indeed, yes, we have spoken a lot about cognitive development, how parents can take up. We've also spoken about cognitive talk at the schools, what is the role of educators in terms of teachers, principals, and the chairmen. And we have received really a marvelous response. And a lot of parents have reached out to us in terms of taking special sessions and master classes. We are really overwhelmed with the kind of response we have received from the teachers and the principal. They have find our insights very beneficial and something very, very, I would say, like a Pandora box, few of them have told. So thank you, Carla, for such a lovely partnership and collaboration. I'm really glad that the destiny made us meet, and that's how we. But yes, today's topic is indeed an exceptional topic where we are talking about the current situations we are into, both online and offline classroom engagement, online and offline teaching learning methodology, and it is more learning centered approach. However, technology has taken lot of given a paradigm shift in the education, where we have seen the internet of things, IoTs have intervened and changed the education paradigm completely. And hence, the interest level, the attention level, the curiosity level, the creativity level, uh, different kinds of skills are developed in different space, different ways, different forms. Hence, it's very important for us to discuss this topic where we are bringing technology and education together, academics together, licensing both of them, and understanding that invasion of technology in today's education, how to develop the cognitive skills, because in the form of curriculum which comes in the online form, how we can blend such insights or such thoughts so that curriculum itself drives the cognitive skill development. So Carla, thank you so much again, and up to you now, that how would you like to talk and discuss
I
about.
would like, thank you. Thank you for introducing that in a very succinct terminology and with the concerns that we want to see the development of technology in children's learning processes, because in some ways that means if it's done correctly, we could take we can help children learn to take the classroom wherever they go and really begin that very distinct definition of what it means to be a lifetime learner. So my first question for you is that we know that technology is a major part of our lives, and even more so for today's children, much more so than any generation in history. Today's young people are dealing with things that never did a generation in history ever deal with. So we still need to, of course, address cognitive development, which is our central mission, to really help people understand how that really works in conjunction with everything that we do and learn. So how do you see technology infusing the finer traits of cognitive development, especially where reasoning and critical thinking are concerned? And then also, I know I'm throwing this in at the last minute, but if you want to say something about how the STEM fields are also, I may ask you that later. So just answer the question the way that you really see best cognitive development of technology.
Yes, very interesting question. And I think we have to be very flexible when we think about such approach, because unlike adult's brain, child's brain is still in the developing phase. Mm-hmm. So when you expose a child to a higher rate of anything, whether it's higher rates of books or higher rates of technology, brain may adopt that very quickly because that's in the learning and the developing phase. So today, it's the world of technology and internet. So they're highly exposed to internet. So I would say with an extremely high rate of internet exposure to thinking, the scanning capacity of the children have gone very high. The processing of multiple informations at one go has gone very high, which is a plus sign, I would say, in the cognitive skill development. However, due to extensive screen timing, there is a problem of highest attention deficit symptoms. The retention is fast, but the retention, I would say the absorption is fast, but the retention is not for a longer period. When I'm talking about heightened attention deficit symptom. Now, impaired emotions have come up because emotional well-being is not dealt with the technology as of now. Yeah. Social intelligence has also gone down. Technological intelligence has gone high. Personal intelligence have gone high. Then I talk about social isolation, that's gone down. People have got impaired behavioral syndromes. They have got disruptive sleeps coming up. There are negative social skills. So we are not talking about the negative. Indeed, technology has done many positive signs, like children are able to retain the names faster. Their semantic skills have gone very high. Their visual skills have gone very high. Yes. Their planning skills, ideation skills have gone very high. Their memory retentions have gone very high. In fact, the logical and reasoning skills have also gone very high. So I would say it has become more of a computerized life, because if you see music, we are on the pods, we are on internet. We have got these days smart televisions which are on technology. We have got fingerprints, everything coming on technology. So question is, are we still, trying to make our life so smarter that we are losing on our emotional well-being and social well-being, which is a important part of cognitive development. Analytical skills have gone very high. When you talk about video games, which is a technological driven learning, you see the online courses coming up, they'll have treasure hunt, they'll have virtual voices. The child has to figure out, reach to a level, then crack the nuts. So there the strategic planning, puzzles, recognizing anything. So analytical skills have definitely gone high. Absorption skills are very high. Human performance has gone high for digital. But when I'm talking about human performance for human itself, human performance for digital has gone high. But human performance for human emotions have gone down. Children have grown up, more like computers, but they are not growing up like human beings. So question is, are we converting our kids to computers is also important. So brain takes over when a child is in a developing stage. Brain takes over its own initiative. It's simply like
Yes.
what you are more in the environment, the pace of development is that. So we have studied in science also, coming from a science and biotech background, we've studied about hyposecretion and hypersecretion, or absorption. So if there is a hyper absorption of everything, the brain develops on that side. If there is a exposure to certain things, the brain will deviate from that. So digital learning has definitely enhanced the learning process, but we are losing our value with the well-being. We are losing our emotional well-being. We are losing our thought well-being.
Yes.
I'll give you I'll talk you about a small survey which has happened with 191 students, and that's a survey done and the grade 8 student. So 191 students were exposed to high digital usage and 191 students were exposed to low digital. And there was a psychological test done, and a temporary, I would say, ad hoc impact was observed. In that way, it was observed that the students who were exposed to higher digital technological way of methodology of studying, the cognitive performance were, I would say, cognitive performance, not the cognitive skills. The cognitive performance was advanced, but the skill development rate was slow, because the emotional skill is considered to be highest skill in cognitive development, which was somewhere missing. The quality of life of the student have increased. The standard, the smart living has increased. But if you talk about, so technology is definitely has its plus and minus. Everything has its plus and minus. So it is very important now to understand that learning has to be a blend of both. Learning has to be a blend of both online and offline. Let the child study online, but do all the activities, all hands-on experience, everything offline. That is what I can say about, how the technology is a major part or have become a major part, and where is a plus for cognitive skill, where is a minus for cognitive skills.
Right. So that you partially answered to some degree. That was great. And I love all the information that you gave, especially the stats and the studies. They really prove the advancements, because children are exposed to, rather than just an immediate environment and a book-based or text-based way of learning, they're actually able to connect to the whole world. So there's so much more stimulation for them, and this is really great. So my second question, I think that it intertwines very much with what you were saying, because you were talking about the basic cognitive skills and the emotional and social development skills. And so my second question is, do you think that online interactive learning with students would be best done by teachers giving specific instructions for independent study, and then optimizing offline or in-person, in-classroom sessions for discussions, sharing, and doing a lot more socializing context, so that those other skills can also be upgraded? So you started mentioning what was up and what was down. So maybe you can just add something about
linking my thought about online and offline classes. I think this question is very interesting, because when you're talking about instructor-led classroom, in both the cases, whether it is online and offline, it is instructor-led. Even if you see the offline classes of the school, it is self-paced. Even online, off the online, when you have to do certain tasks, it is also self-paced. So the strategic way, both are the same. However, when you're in online, along with the teacher support, you are getting internet, I would say digital support, tool supports, Internet of Things support. So whether it is in classroom or virtual way of driving, at the end, it is very important that the learning needs to be optimized. It is about performance management you talk about in corporate. So learning has to be optimized. Whatever sessions, whether it is online or offline, the children needs to have sharing with the peers, Children need to have self discussions with them or the parents or the peers. Socializing contact is very important. Now it has its own benefit of online, because when a teacher is teaching in a classroom, it has not been recorded. So here the online has a plus point. But if as a teacher, if I teach in a classroom and I'm sharing certain examples, the retention capacity of every child varies in a classroom. Some have from 2 minute span to 10 minute span as per the research and the stats which says that. So a child when has to do recapitulation, a child is an absent in a classroom or has failed to attempt the session because of certain things, the online class have a benefit that these classes are recorded. So the recordings are available. Even a child wants to go through it once again, the learning in the class. Child wants to repeatedly do a recapitulation, a revisions. So that's available. Second very plus benefit of online teaching is that you have a stimulated or simulated environment. A playway of method is more available online because the kinds of games, the simulations are available, the video games and treasure hunts are available. We have been doing in a classroom, but somehow with the intervention of online, the taste of doing those activity within the classroom has lost its taste, or I would say enthusiasm, and especially in pandemic when online has overtaken the offline. In these ways, you see the emotional sides of the students have lost. So it's very important. Then now the schools are now revamping back. Schools are starting back. Kids are in the class. I think the initial stage of the schooling time, which is coming up now slowly and gearing up, schools and the educators should focus more on building the social context. They should go, they should have lot of activities within the classroom away from textbook and away, developing their value skills, social skills, empathetic skills, collaborative skills, because some have lost and they feel that our world is only in the screen. The world has become only, everything is available in the screen. That is a negative approach in terms of losing the essence of being a human being is missing. However, if you see the outreach today, any student from a tier 4 village also, a student who has the access to internet can have an information, a teacher, an exchange program across any school of the world, across best of the teachers they can get. So the outreach has gone very high because of this platform. Social issues have come closer. Now kids are knowing what are the social problems, so they can work on the real problems actually. So these are very, very plus points of technology coming up. It's very important that with the online teaching, we start with the social awareness problems. We start with the case studies. These are missing actually, and we need to bring when we have the outreach possible at our hands on the phone or on the laptop or on the tablet. So this way we can enhance the progress-based learning and basically project-based learning. So when the community development happens, the kids are more exposed because the understanding, the structural configuration, how to do a project, the strategy behind it, the ideation, the execution, everything is available online, and that's really great because every student will have a holistic development. Every student will have a uniform education. But when it comes to linking your emotional sides, linking your empathetic sides, no one can replace a classroom. A gadget cannot replace a classroom. So that is one thing, that structured approach in the curriculum in the online system has to have the case study or the problem statement where child is bound to think that if this situation comes, how will I deal with my friend? If this situation comes, how will I deal with an environmentalist? If this situation comes, how will I deal with a book writer? If this situation comes, how will I deal with a plumber at my house? These case studies somewhere is missing in the online curriculum. I think integration of these, it's a very excellent combination of online and offline. Now, with this in mind, because I'm talking about peer talking, collaboration, Carla, this brings a very interesting question, which I would like to ask you, which says that, peer assessments help students to become more objective about their own learning, and it can assist learning. Now, it is argued across and not considered while designing a curriculum. We all talk about that peer assessment is great. It has its own objective. The learning is faster. Children learn more. But somewhere, while designing the curriculum, this has not been considered till now. Whether it is an online curriculum, whether it is an offline curriculum. In both the cases, I have seen it's not. Now, it's what the student, evaluates the questions too. Students should evaluate the questions, because one question can have many answers or multiple answers, because answers should be logical. So how do you see this as both positive and negative in a learning process? If we involve the peer assessment, how is it positive? If we do not involve, how do you feel that it's a negative, both positive and the negative sides?
Okay. I hope that you can hear me over the choo-choo train in the background. Sometimes it's a nice soothing sound in the morning. I think that peer assessment is undervalued and underemphasized, and it's too much of the teacher assessing each child, and then so children really feel alone, and it fuels this difficulty with the whole issue of competitiveness, rather than we want each one to be individually successful, but then once they're done with school, we want to throw them into the work world, and we say, now either become a good leader, but then also you need to learn how to collaborate. And neither one of these things have been distinctly defined. So my answer is that peer assessment is extremely helpful, useful, and it's actually a natural requisite in their cognitive development, because bringing proper order to understanding of cognition, as you and I are on a mission to do, is one of the first things. And in order for, in human development, a major aspect of our own universal common abilities is to be able to either make strict observations about the abilities of other people, or to be able to be intuitively attuned enough so that we can easily see what the abilities are of other people. So this is a lifetime skill. This is what helps us be more emotionally bonded with other people. This is what helps us collaborate with other people. This is what helps us reinvent our skill transferability process. So peer assessment among students is very, very important, because in this way they get a chance to learn about what other people's abilities are, what their peers' abilities are, and they are going to be each other's peers in the future when they go out into the world and collaborate together and innovate together. So to just have a consensus or a contract between teacher and child with a label on their abilities, you got an A, you got a B+, you got a C-, it's completely anti-conducive to what it is that children need to develop. So when we talk about cognition, people are starting to get familiar with it, but they think it's just a brain process. It's a whole body process. So cognition in the classroom also has to be a whole classroom process. And then, of course, knowledge comes from the universe. So it's something that we'll talk about later on when we get to it. But even more than technology being involved in the classroom also has to take on different backgrounds. So that's something else we could talk about another time. But it is important. Students assessment, peer assessment among one another is an excellent way for students to develop more emotional bonding. And when we say peer assessment, we're also talking about the elimination of peer pressure, because with peer assessment, children come to know what other people's abilities are. They can easily appreciate the peer assessment that comes with when we go into the mental health issue with children bullying other children is severely lessened because peers are already seeing other children in light of their own abilities. So peer assessment is so undervalued. We really, really need to incorporate it.
Before I go to the second question, in this only I have something very just popped up. You know, we talk about competitive learning and says these days competition should not be there. It should be about sharing and learning. But still, when the peer assessment is done, Carla, somehow the competition comes in picture. Children become competitive. Okay, I have got the score from my peer A. I've got the score from my peer B or C or D. I would like to have now, next time I would like to get this score. So I work very hard. I start learning. So there is some encouragement coming with that competition somehow.
Right.
Plus,
if we answer this question according to what you're just saying, with the peer assessment also comes peer mentorship. So if we're developing this emotional intelligence skill, it's like, okay, it's so much easier to do. You are good at that. I am good with this. Let us be. It's peer assessment also comes with, the elimination of peer pressure and the upgrading of peer mentorship and so many more emotional intelligence skills and the setting for being good collaborative workers in the future. There's so many developments. I see zero negativity with the whole peer assessment thing. I mean, maybe somebody could show.
Kids learn better in their age group or the elderly age group. And it is also said that to make yourself a good learner, a person who grows very fast, you should sit in every age group, which very often I have been doing, from kids to an elderly people to every age group. If you sit, the knowledge base and the understanding grows faster. Coming with this, Carla, I have something for you to, please let us know any studies that compare features of concept mapping with outlining. Now, we do content mapping in online edtech. We are talking about the concept mapping with the outlining. Now, many studies have reported both outlining and concept mapping is helpful for learning and assessment. Outline as well as the concept mapping. But they look sometimes as like a black boxes. On the other hand, although outlining is more widely among students and researchers, then what are the features that differentiate them? How do you differentiate an online content and a concept mapping content? Are there any specific features that are helpful for some applications but not others?
Okay, so this is a very complicated, but also a complicated issue, but it's also a beautifully complex issue. And I know that the answer I have is really wildly different than what most people would expect. And I know that you asked for what studies are there to support the idea of concept mapping, and then where does outlining have its advantages. Well, when I think of outlining, I'm a writer, so I do a lot of pencil outlining, but I think a lot of this is rooted in the fact that we learn literacy and numeracy too much and too early. But there are great advantages. Literacy and numeracy are the first artificial intelligence processes, and they've done us great wonders over many centuries, millennia, and everything. But if you're going to ask me what my best evidence or study is for concept mapping, I think that outlining is good for a grocery list. And concept mapping, I think the best evidence for that is the way that Einstein thought, because he was a concept mapper. I mean, of course, other scientists and autobiographers that write about him talk about what he called the thought experiment. But I think that when it comes to students learning, and if there's more essence in the foundational years before formal K to 12 years, if there's more diversified principles of mathematics infused into all the cognitive development functions, then the concept mapping becomes so much more vital in the learning process. And I think that even certain tests and discussions, or tests and quizzes through discussions, can actually be done through the concept of concept mapping. And so to keep it simple, I think that concept mapping and outlining have to work side by side, but I think that on the margins of concept mapping and outlining, there are so many more features based on the fundamental principles of math that can be incorporated.
Just summarizing your thought, I think concept mapping is more like developing your basics, the base, because without roots, tree cannot grow, a sapling cannot grow. The more it is rooted, the better the growth is. So concept mapping is something where we are creating the basics and the concepts, but outline is something like a superficial circumference where we are just talking about certain loops about the topic. So that so I would say that it is more on a major skills and micro skills, where micro skills are more important to be received in cognitive development, because when you pick up the micro skills and the child will be able to plug in those concepts and come and derive to a conclusion about the topic. But when you're just giving an outline, the child does not have the depth of the concept. He will be missing in understanding and applying in the real life. I hope this is what you are actually meaning.
Yes, and also we talked, and you and I have talked extensively about this, and I think what's very important is that when we talk about the STEAM, we have introduced the idea that we think that music and the arts and the humanities and all of those other things that people think are often frivolous, but they actually have to be infused in every subject that we learn. That's what we call true diversification. And I think when they're infused, rather than be given as a sidebar or a margin note in, oh, here's your way of being creative, draw a picture, when they're actually infused into each subject, then you have a lot more computational thinking going on at even a younger age, where children can use things like concept mapping and outlining side by side, and they can be interfused. And when they can interfuse that, children are very creative, so they can go ahead and interfuse general technology and the other things that they know with the same frequencies and sequencing of what it is that they're learning. So it goes on a roll, and then kids are more able to creatively collaborate. And then also the peer assessment actually naturally falls into the fold of it. So that's also part of it too. But I have a question for you. Did you want to say
something which you're trying to say, that we are somewhere landing in the advancement concept of STEAM becoming a very major player, whether it is an offline textbook curriculum or an online curriculum? That's something which we can conclude to. Okay, that's interesting.
So when we get infused and we talk about diversification and inclusion, it really means that diversification is part of everything and it needs to be included in everything. So, but I have another question for you. I have another couple of questions for you, if you're okay with that. So as I said, both you and I know that we are particularly concerned with the advanced development of the STEM field. So I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more, because I know you have a lot to say about it. I have a lot to say about it. And so it should include the arts. So based on what you started to say and what you surmised about what it was that I was saying, what are some of your own creative or imaginative ideas about how we can include arts and humanities and music and movement into either the technology virtual classroom or the real life classroom or the environmental outside classroom? Like, how do you see the future of the classroom changing?
Carla, this is very interesting. I think what I can foresee and I understand as an educationist, if I am a teacher in a classroom, it's not important for me whether I'm teaching online or an offline in today's time, because I'm well versed and equipped with it. For me, important is that when I am teaching a student, whether it is online and offline, where am I adding any value to the society? Am I actually doing a problem solving work for the society? Because today's the biggest education is solving the problems of the society. And if you see the STEAM is a way to help the society to develop better. We have a lot of scientific issues. We have a lot of technological advancements going on. We have engineering things going on different fields. We have art becoming a very important structure. I'll come with an examples how it is. We have come with humanities, music, maths. I would also say value education. I would say also, liberal arts coming in picture. So we are actually creating a critical thinkers. The time has come to create critical thinkers. The time has come to create innovators. It is more about skill development, not academic development. New products, new processes can be developed through STEAM. You can have a sustainable economy. Now, sustainable is something which we all are talking about, sustainable awareness and development and plans. So if you keep the STEAM curriculum as the base of your entire curriculum, you're actually developing society, actually developing 6 skills, I will name it. One is you're increasing the inquiry skills in a child. Second, you are developing the creativity of a child. You are also helping a child to develop a design thinking skills. You are making a child to collaborate, because a child, suppose for example, we do carry mobile phones. We like the mobile phones with the look and feel. Some is matte finish, somewhere it is glossy finish, somewhere it is very thin, it's thick. So we talk about functionality also of the mobile. We talk about the material of the mobile. We talk about the ergonomics of the mobile. Based on the demand in the society, the kinds of mobiles, if you see, this is top mobile, this is second level of mobile. This mobile is not very well in the market. So based on that, actually the product and the processes are also designed. Analytical and logical skill is the 5th, and the 6th, I would say, maths and science skills are getting very high. Even you do in arts, in architect also, you design the entire architect of maybe a house, maybe of a bungalow, maybe of a company, maybe of a particular, monuments. So wherever you're designing it, you're bringing arts also. You're bringing art everywhere. So biggest issue which I see or I have seen while developing also is actually lack of uniform guidelines as what should be within the STEAM curriculum at a particular grade level. Now we know that, for example, a windmill is taught in grade 3, 4, and 5. Now in class 3 and 4 and 5, we are teaching windmill. So windmill have a concept of physics. Windmill will have a concept of engineering where a child designs the windmill. Now windmill have an aesthetic arts coming in, because when you're designing, windmill can be designed with the vanes, and you remove the vanes only on the rods. It can be oscillated. That is another kind of design. It depends on the RPM, rotatory, RPM of the wind, your rod. So if it is without the vane, the speed will be faster. If it is with the vane, the speed will be lesser. So we are bringing engineering, arts, maths, everything in designing of the project. So we are somehow making a child to understand the functionality. And this is a way where a STEAM curriculum can be brought within a classroom. So that is one aspect, that we do not have a particular guideline or a structured mapped curriculum how to introduce STEAM, which can develop the society. The second aspect of when you're developing a STEAM, like what qualified teachers are you hiring for introducing such projects or concepts in the class? Are you upgrading the skills of a teacher is another question. So every program, if you see of this team at every school, is not uniform. Every program is different. To talk about uniform education, to talk about holistic education, we need to bring all this kind of. So we have to reason out our choices we make. We have to bring blended learning and experiential learning, which we have done it. So this was one of the example of windmill, which I'm giving a very smaller grade. We have done in our school. I'll give you one example of two concepts we developed in a schools in Bangalore when I was working as a head L&D for a edtech startup in Bangalore. That point of time, we have had a traffic signal installed in a school. So the problem statement of the school was the school's gate was a very narrow gate. So the entry and exit of the buses were with the same route, and it was having a collision. So so we thought, since we were mentoring the school students, so we thought of building up a traffic signal, not exactly what is on the roadside of the height, but of the similar kind of with the students. So grade 8 student actually worked on the traffic signal. They did the masoning. They actually have put everything in the school. They designed the traffic signal with the sensors, LED lights, and actually that has solved the problem of the school, that it was a real application work. So this is progress based, this is project based, engineering, arts, maths, science, technology, everything was brought up in the school, and a product was designed with a proper process where analytical thinking was applied, logical thinking was applied. So this was one of the project. I'm giving an example of the second project which we have done. So I think that way, if STEAM is brought in a very well outlined structure and teachers are aligned with the concept, I think in that form, the questions which you have asked me, that with my experience, how I can bring STEAM, these are some of the concepts I think if understood well, it will really solve a lot of problems and society will be more developed with the STEAM curriculum.
Well, I have another question for you, and it's funny that you say that because I think that I've always said architecture was a great way of setting an example where, of course, you have math, and of course, you have the fundamental laws of physics, and of course, art is considered in the mix of architecture, and then, of course, the elements. So architecture itself is probably one of the first technologies of humanity. And if we go back into humanity early in human history, we can see that the whole field of architecture was what we would call diversified. And people also had to use their instinct and their intuition. And so when we talk about teachers having sometimes there's a violation in the basic standards of what STEAM is and how it's been violated by robotics and coding. But we also have to prepare teachers to have a little bit more, at least, of an intuitive understanding of the fundamentals. And when we say the fundamentals, we're talking about the diversified fundamentals of mathematics that define everything. So architecture is a very good example where art and the elements and comfort and people being together and math, so many things are incorporated. And I think that's one of the best things. It's one of our most ancient fields of knowledge, right? So because before architecture and house, people still lived in trees. So my next question to you highlights one of the other things that, two of the things that you said where they come together, where we are trying to really infuse the fundamentals of STEAM and getting teachers to be more astute in their understanding, because we want to do more than just identify problems. When you talked about the windmill, we want to actually be able to get past the identification phase and really find the solutions. We want to just really go really quickly past the identification phase of problems and get to the solution, which is what really good computational thinking helps us to develop. And so we need to see that more in teachers so that they can pass that skill on to students. So my last question is, so where we're talking about technology, we want to understand where that can be used and that students can be more involved with technology concern. How can students be more involved in getting to know their own community and putting their own ideas, infusing their own ideas into stuff that's going on in the community so that they can also add that computational thinking process to solving problems rather than just identifying problems, using that really astute critical thinking skill that they're developing with both online and offline learning. So how can the technology help children get more involved in the community so that they're more prepared for contributing their ideas to the whole infrastructure and industrial development and social development of their community and their society, and even on a global level? Because we know that young people, even though their social or emotional skills are lower, a lot of them recognize that, and they're really hungry for their social and emotional skills to really be upgraded. So how do you see technology and infrastructural development or community development being more combined?
This again revolves around problem solving skills. It again around about how research based skills, analytical skills. So from the beginning, of course, we have a lot of national and local problems. We need to focus towards sustainable development. We need to talk about environmental issues. We need to talk about social issues. They were like an app developed where the local toilets, people were not even aware that there are local toilets. Child has developed an app, and at least 10,000 toilets can be, being reached out through an app. There are apps where you get all the doctors on one app, so you know near your nearest doctors. We have seen the food delivery systems also. So we have saw a lot of issues of the community as a whole. We have talked about economical problems also. So there are a lot of problems actually. So at the end, your learning should be in a way where you are a solution maker. So it's very important that we are involved in technology, which is making our work faster. The outreach is closer. The learning is also faster. And the curiosity and the interactive level has also gone high. So there are a lot of plus. But involving a student in a right way is very important. So from the beginning in a classroom, are we involving students in understanding a problem statement? Question is, are the teachers also, or the parents also, or when the case study is given to a student, are we able to confer or infer about the real problem statement? And what is your looking out from that problem? That is something which is very important. Now, because when a child, early age, when the child, as I told, is under development stage and adults' brain are already developed, in the development stage, if you put a child with a lot of problem statements, he will understand the basics of it. He will understand the strategic of it. He will understand the loop structure of it. He will understand what are the elements important in it. So in that way, you are actually making him with over a period of time, I would say from 6 years, 7 years, or 10 years to understand various problems across the society. So the curriculum should in a class. So suppose if I'm doing an online teaching or an offline teaching of class 1, suppose English, I should have 5 problem statements. If I'm doing science, I should have 5. So if I have 5, a problem statement in all these subjects, suppose 5 subjects or 7 subjects. So we are basically giving a class 1 student, for example, I'm saying you can replace it with class 5 students, 25 problem statements in a year, in a one academic and annual year. So 25 problems are solved by one class. I'm talking about one class. Imagine if such 25 problems are solved by all 10 classes, we are actually solving 250 problems of the society, of the local problems. So in that 25, you can have 10 from local or 15 from local, and 10 can be from the national problems, depending. Now it is not only to that. Schools are now having robotics, they are having innovations lab, corporates are tying up, they are having entrepreneurship lab set up, entrepreneurship trainings to be set up in the schools happening. So when a child has worked on a project, it is also to be exposed, also to be shared with these third-party stakeholders, and also should be brought to various summits, various workshops, various events to get the exposure, so that the child gets a lot of questions also from the audience to rethink on the problem statement or the scenario which they have missed on, or maybe they have worked upon, they are not able to share, but when the question, so that also brings an entrepreneurship skills among the child developing at the local level, because the more we develop the innovators at the local level, the problems of the local level will be solved a lot. Bangalore, if you see, there are a lot of startups who are only among Bangalore and solving a lot of problems of the Bangalore. Now they've started moving out to other cities. So it's very important that we are a scattered population in different geographical locations. If every geography starts working in the development of the local development, each local development will actually become a national development in itself. So students should be involved, given exposure. Industrial visits should happen, corporate visits should happen, field trips should happen. Problem statement, as I said, in the curriculum, it should be designed in a way, whether it is online or offline, that becomes a mandatory part of their projects, learning, science skills, math skills. I think that way, if we introduce a lot of what you want to do as a community development as a whole, will be a game changer, actually. Now, keeping this in mind, we are talking about technology. We have integrated computer technological tools also, which is used to translate real life qualifications, assessments, practices into online qualification assessment processes in a blended form. Now, especially due to COVID-19 quarantine measures. Now, how are ICT tools used to translate real life qualification assessment practices to online qualification assessment? Because in COVID-19, everything has moved from an offline to an online. So how do you think ICT tools have translated this? Yeah.
That's also another tough question, because it really makes me wonder if this question is really answerable in terms of the standard models that we have now. But the way that I would best answer this question would be to say that just as there is a disconnect between artificial intelligence and computer technology and intuitive intelligence in human cognitive development, so there is also a disconnect between real life qualification assessment and online qualification assessment. So yes, we do want it blended, just in the same way we want real human intuitive intelligence to drive artificial intelligence. We want real life assessment and qualification to drive technology. And in that sense, we have a lot more advantages, especially when we combine all of the things that we have spoken about so far with the fundamental natural principles of knowledge, which are the basic laws of math and physics and what we know of that can be proven in science, because even science depends on the fundamentals of math. And most math is non-numerical, which is good to know, because then it applies to emotional cognitive development too, which is what children really need. But in terms of all of that, I think that we do have to use real life assessment as the standard model for designing online qualification assessment. And that sounds very, very simple. But the more that we focus on the emotional cognitive development and the social development and the in-person development, then it augments all of that other development that we want to derive from the technology. And so, in other words, if we have more emotional and social development, we can actually innovate and collaborate more on how the technology develops, so that then the technology can return the process to us in terms of our own quality. I'd like to see personally, I've never been a techie per se. I know you know more about technological. The thing that I look forward to is seeing how holograms will be used in education for a more blended experience.
Carla, coming to your this thought process, let's consider you're a child and you spoke about real assessment coming on the tools on the platform online. So you have a lot of online games. Games looks like a game. Simulation, they looks like a very interesting and very interactive games, but there is a learning outcome. There's an objective by the games are created, and they're very automatic, quick. The interest level of a child is being connected. It triggers the curiosity of the child to know what is there, how to crack or to play the games. But at every level of the games, there are certain learnings. Now they help. Each level will provide a feedback to the student and provide the teacher also with some statistics, because every level a child cross, then there is I would say an assessment draft given on various parameters of from creativity to cognitive skills and other development skills and all, to evaluate the progress of learning. So what are other than games and the quizzes which is available online these days? Most are games and quizzes or trends. What are the other ways which you can offer or can share, which is something new at the international level also, which you can recommend that we can bring this also, A also, B also, C also, which will make the learning and online engagement and the learning faster and in a better approach, where you are bringing your real assessment also integrated. So how do you
okay, so when we speak about when we review all of the things that we have spoken about today and all of the other things that we've spoken about, I think things such as the Moodle quizzes are much better than, of course, heavy testing. And I think they can be done in a number of ways. The teacher can distribute Moodle tests. The children can also help design Moodle tests, because this is also an opportunity for teachers to evaluate how children use their own critical thinking skills and what kind of questions they would come up with in any kind of quizzes, aside from Moodle quizzes. But I think when you take those types of quizzes and other creative additions that children in their assessments would suggest to the teacher to do, the teacher can evaluate two things at once. They can evaluate children's critical thinking skills, and they can also synthesize the interactive classroom, the ICT, as you were speaking about, where children can see each other and they can raise their hands. So if that kind of thing can be integrated into the whole online classroom thing, then quizzes can also be structured and distributed among students together in when we combine it with the peer assessment. Teachers can do quizzes. There's a number of things to that. There can be, of course, the traditional teacher gives all the students quizzes, and then it can be rejumbled so that students take different turns to be sort of like the teacher assistant and offer quizzes. Or there could be a whole room interactive classroom quiz where each child before the class session comes up with a question and has to ask one or two or maybe a pair of students, and they have to answer it together, so that they're figuring out also how to collaborate and they're assessing each other's knowledge. So all of those skills together can be synthesized. And when we talk about the whole classroom, just like cognition is a whole body process, then we're combining all of those different and diverse things together rather than putting them in these categories when they could be used together.
Carla, any real life experience around this?
Real life experience. So in my own experience with teaching children, I remember diversification being my motto whenever possible. So I think I might have mentioned to you once upon a time, one of my favorite setups in my classroom was that I had a conference room, because everything is really based on communication. So if children had difficulty or an argument or whatever, they would have to speak between themselves on the issue. Typically, I think in a classroom, teachers intervene and they go, okay, forget it, stop fighting, let's be positive, behave, say sorry, and you go there and you go there. And I would never let the kids go their separate ways unless they had discussed the issue. And in the beginning, I would have to help them get the issue going. But after a couple of months, they would, the students would help each other get the issue going. So it became more of a collaborative thing. So there might be 2 or 3 kids in that conference corner discussing an issue over a toy or whatever else, or who they were going to play with. But before you know it, there were 5, 6 kids in on the whole discussion, and they would help each other work out the issue. So again, one of my favorite areas in designing the diversification of all areas of cognitive development, it really does come down to communication. So if anybody's going to ask me my experience or whatever, I'm probably always going to come up with some example about how communication is the issue. And in particular, the whole cognitive development project took off for me when we were explained how the non-negated verbal optimal syntax conversation from the point of the teacher setting the example would be the setting for getting children's brains to just instantly respond to their own abilities, and also to how it is that they can connect to others, and how they're learning from the knowledge of unlimited possibilities and potential, and keep the objects of shame and guilt and consequences out of the whole spectrum of learning. So that was probably my most influential aspect of experience.
That's lovely share and lovely talk around technology invasion in education. But there are a lot of plus and minus for both within the classroom and online education. It has its own equal plus and minuses, equal way of development. But yes. If we talk about the excellence part, learning of a student, whether it is a learning centered approach, I think innovation plays a very major role. Whether it is online and offline, application-based learning plays a major role, blended learning plays a major role, experiential learning, DIY, which is do it yourself, a hands-on experience plays a major role, blended learning, inquiry plays a very important role. Learning happens about the issues which are going to develop your society, our society together. But most important question still remains unanswered, which I feel still is, will technology teach us how to be patient, how to have perseverance? Will technology also make us to understand that how do I level up our soul, which is very, very important aspect, a very 3 major area in developing your cognitive skills, along with the academics and other co-curricular activities. So let's see the plus and minus of both the sides and help our children to develop in a better way, bringing better models, bringing the models which also can help and make a child understand and think that is empathy, humbleness, patience, perseverance are also important when we are talking about being and developing a human being. So thank you so much.
Those are one of my favorite, my favorite topics of all. And
here, and we had lovely series for all the three important stakeholders, from schools to parents to edtech organizations. Today we are coming up with master classes. So stay tuned with Carla and Rajni. Together we are coming with an amazing concept which is much required in today's education time, bringing global concept, global engagements together and in tune with developing your cognitive skills. So stay tuned with us and have a lovely day. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Rajni. So good to see you.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here.